Have you ever stopped to think about the stories your own blood could tell? I mean, really think about it. Deep inside every single red blood cell, there's this incredible protein that carries a story about our genetics, our health, and, believe it or not, our evolution. So let's dive into that story, a story written in blood, all about a protein called hemoglobin. Okay, the big word for our story today is hemoglobinopathy. It sounds super complicated, I know, but let's break it down. It's basically just a group of genetic disorders that mess with hemoglobin. And if you think of hemoglobin as your body's oxygen delivery service, a hemoglobinopathy just means there's an inherited glitch in that service, a problem that comes straight from the genetic factory floor.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to meet our main character, the oxygen carrier itself. Then, we'll look at the two main ways things can go wrong, and it really boils down to a problem of quality versus quantity. After that, we'll dig into each of those problems, and we're going to wrap up with this amazing evolutionary twist that honestly changes how you see the whole thing.
All right, so let's properly meet the star of the show, hemoglobin. This is the protein that lives inside your red blood cells, and its whole job is to grab oxygen in your lungs and then drop it off to every single cell in your body. It is the ultimate delivery service, working non-stop, 24/7, with every single breath you take.
Now, the structure of hemoglobin is absolutely critical. Imagine it's built from four parts, four protein chains, typically two of one kind called alpha and two of another called beta. And that one-to-one balance, it has to be perfect. Because when it's not, well, that's when our story starts to get really interesting.
And you know, our hemoglobin isn't the same our whole lives. It actually changes as we grow. When we're just tiny embryos, we use one special type. Then, as a fetus, we switch to another kind that's way better at grabbing oxygen from mom. But by the time we're about 6 months old, we've switched almost completely to the adult form. That's the normal healthy path.
So what happens when the genetic blueprint for this super important protein has a typo in it? Well, that brings us right to the heart of our story. And it's a classic tale, really. A tale of quality versus quantity.
And here's the wild part. There are over 1,000 known variations of these disorders, but almost every single one falls into just two main categories. If you can get your head around this simple framework, the whole thing just clicks into place.
So, on one hand, we have the quality problem. These are the structural abnormalities. This is where the hemoglobin molecule itself is built wrong, like our oxygen taxi is misshapen and just can't do its job right. Then on the other hand, you've got the quantity problem. These are the thalassemias. Here, the individual parts are perfectly fine, but the factory just isn't making enough of them. It's like a huge city with not nearly enough taxis on the road to get everyone where they need to go.
So let's tackle that first one, the quality issue. This is all about a flaw in the actual design of the hemoglobin molecule. A single tiny change in the genetic code can change its shape, and because shape determines function, that changes everything. Now, the most famous example here, by far, is sickle cell disease. A tiny genetic typo causes hemoglobin molecules to stick together after they drop off their oxygen. This forces the whole red blood cell to warp into this hard sickle shape. These damaged cells get destroyed way too early, and that causes anemia. Other quality problems can make the hemoglobin unstable, or even mess with how well it holds on to or lets go of oxygen.
Okay, let's look at the other side of the coin now, the quantity problem. Remember, this isn't about a faulty part. The hemoglobin that does get made is totally normal. The problem here is a breakdown on the production line.
And here's the crucial thing to understand about thalassemia. The biggest problem isn't just having less hemoglobin. The real issue is that the body isn't making enough of one kind of protein chain, say the beta chain, but it keeps churning out the other kind, the alpha chains, at full speed. This creates a toxic surplus of lonely, unmatched alpha chains that just build up inside the developing red cell, poisoning it from the inside out and often destroying it before it even leaves the bone marrow.
And this is what that looks like. You're looking at a blood smear from someone with beta thalassemia. Instead of those nice, healthy, round red cells, you can see the damage from that toxic imbalance. The cells are pale, they're small, they're all kinds of irregular shapes, all because their production was so badly disrupted.
So this table really sums it up. It doesn't matter if you're short on alpha chains or short on beta chains. At the end of the day, the result is the same. You get this destructive pileup of the other one. In both cases, that imbalance, that's the real enemy.
So, we've seen how this vital protein can go wrong. But hold on, this story has one last absolutely incredible chapter. It turns out that some of these so-called flaws might actually have a hidden purpose.
And this leads to a really fascinating question, right? If these genetic conditions can make people so sick, why haven't they just been weeded out by natural selection? Why are they so common in specific parts of the world, like around the Mediterranean, across Africa, and in Southeast Asia?
And here it is, the answer. In what is just a stunning example of evolution in action, carrying the trait for some of these disorders gives you a huge survival advantage against one of humanity's oldest and deadliest enemies, malaria. The malaria parasite has to live inside red blood cells to survive, but these abnormal cells create a terrible home for it, making it much harder for the parasite to grow and multiply. This quote from our source just nails it. The benefit is especially strong for what we call heterozygotes. That's people who have just one copy of the faulty gene. They often have few or no symptoms themselves, but they still get that powerful protection from malaria. It's an incredible genetic trade-off that allowed whole populations to survive in malaria-ridden parts of the world.
So, a story that began with a single protein, a single molecule, ends with this sweeping saga of human survival. A genetic error becomes a life-saving adaptation. It really makes you wonder, what other hidden stories about our constant dance with the world around us are written in our very own DNA?